Good afternoon, everyone. Let's try that one more time. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us on the news briefing on this Wednesday. Many of you are aware that there was a flare-up at the Moss Landing Vistra power plant facility overnight. Emergency and local county agencies were on the scene and they did respond. And a lot of people want to know what happened. So we're very pleased to have some people here who can fill us in on what occurred overnight. We're going to go ahead and start with our friend Chief Joel Mendoza with North County Fire Protection District. Hi, Chief. Can you tell us what happened overnight at the facility?
Hi. Thank you for having me today. So yes, yesterday at around 6:30 p.m., the North County Fire District and Monterey County Sheriff's Office were dispatched to a report of a fire at the Moss Landing Moss 300 building. The first engine arrived on scene, and they were able to find a light plume of smoke emitting from the building. Um, as we were making notifications to our county cooperators, smoke began to intensify, eventually turning into flames. The fire was started underneath a pile of rubble in a section that had previously burned during the original fire that occurred on January 16th. The isolated fire burned at different intensities throughout the night and eventually burned out this morning, roughly around 8 o'clock.
So in terms of what happened, what is your role now where you responded, but do you still remain on the scene? Because as we understand, the facility there does have a fire brigade that's monitoring. So what will you do going forward?
So yes, I can answer that. And let me add that, so at the moment, the fire remains under control, and the building is being monitored by personnel for any signs of a rekindle. Um, so tonight's task, the first responders will remain at the scene to ensure that we have a efficient response if needed. I actually have a list of cooperators that attended the fire, and most of them are still here at the scene. So first and foremost, we had North County Fire, Monterey County Sheriff's Office, Monterey County Environmental Health, the Department of Emergency Management, Monterey Bay Air Resources District, the County CAO's office, Public Information Officer's office, Salinas Fire Department Hazmat, Marina Fire Department, and the US EPA. Most of these resources are still on scene, and their role is to support this operation to ensure that we are providing public safety at its best.
And thank you for the list because I think it really shows the amount of agencies that are involved and concerned, about everyone's safety. There was also advisories that were issued last night, and I was wondering if you could describe a little bit more about these advisories weren't requiring people to do things, but recommending that they do things. Are those still in place, and do you anticipate reviewing those over time and possibly lifting them?
So there was at least two advisories that were sent out. The first one was just uh, letting people know that the incident was going on. We want to have transparency, and we want people to be warned ahead of time, or at least as early as possible. And so that was the first advisory that went out. And then there was a second advisory. We were considering wind shifts. So although community monitoring was happening during the event, and environmental health will be able to give us more details on this. But even though that was happening, we did have concerns about wind shifts, and so the second advisory we sent out was to have people close their windows, doors, and then ensure their HVACs are off at night when going to bed, just in case we have a wind shift that we didn't account for.
So that particular advisory or recommendation, that is still in place right now, correct?
So we did send out an advisory. In fact, if it hasn't gone out, it's supposed to go out shortly, essentially stating that the incident is under control. And so at this point, we're back to normal operations. Like I stated earlier, the fire department and the other cooperators, including law enforcement, are going to remain on scene for the foreseeable future to ensure that conditions remain as they are right now.
And I really appreciate you describing what just went out because I saw it went out, but haven't been able to read two screens at the same time yet with only two eyes. So, and it's really great to tell people what went out as well. So thank you, Chief. If you could stay on for a minute. Speaking of air monitoring, we have Eric Sandusky, who's an on-site coordinator with EPA, and he's here and can tell us a little bit more about the air monitoring that was happening last night. Hi, Eric. Thanks for being here. Eric, you're muted.
There we go. Sorry about that. On my network connection out here is very low.
We're happy to have you.
Thank you. Appreciate the invite. So last night, and since the fire, community and on-site air monitoring in real time, meaning that every second data is being reported back to us to monitor the air quality index and the PM 2.5 particulate in the air, as well as hydrogen fluoride. So during this fire, everything was all set up and running as expected. We have data from the incident, and throughout the incident, we were monitoring it pretty much consistently so that we could keep the county public health, and the fire chief up to date on any relevant information for evacuations and whatnot. And reviewing that data, we did not see any sustained readings above the moderate air quality index level throughout the entire incident. There were a few spikes that were, a minute long or so above that, but not directed towards the community and not for a sustained period of time. So at this time, we have not seen any indication of adverse health effects to the public.
And so there is one piece of good news. Can I also ask you about heavy metal sampling? There was concern that maybe that type of sampling wasn't happening in this case. And what is happening with that?
So that's a great question. My understanding is that the metals sampling, it's a 24-hour sample. So the pump runs for 24 hours. And then every day we swap that little cartridge and send that off to a lab. So my understanding is that was ongoing during the event. I can verify that as well. And then we can get with our public information officer, Michaela, and, we can, disseminate that information as needed.
And I really appreciate you describing the type of sampling, because when you say ongoing real-time air monitoring, you can get those results immediately. This other type of sampling isn't available immediately, but it is available.
Correct. Yeah. So the sampling, the difference between monitoring and sampling is monitoring, I can see real-time data and I can see what's happening in the moment. The sampling data is a set of air that's pumped through a filter, and then we have to send that off to a laboratory for analysis. And that typically takes a couple of weeks to get back, unfortunately. But that's, the fastest we can get the data back, and we're turning them around as fast as we possibly can. That way we can inform the public in the county and everybody, what's actually happening on site.
Thank you for that explanation. And one other question that I have for you that has been posed to me by a lot of members of the community is, this was a flare-up. Is it unusual to have flare-ups, or are flare-ups just part of the post-incident life?
So again, that's a very common question. Unfortunately, these batteries are damaged. They are impacted by the weather, by the rain, by the humidity. So it is very, very common that flare-ups do happen. During the fire, you don't get a complete burn of the battery. So there's still some batteries in there that are damaged. And then when water impacts the electrolytes or the electrodes in the batteries, that short circuits and catches fire. And the goal here is to mitigate, excuse me, mitigate the possibility of a large fire, and keep the fires as small as possible. Because unfortunately, during a lithium battery event, the rekindling is very, very likely. It is almost a certainty that it will happen at some point.
And is there a benefit to the fact that the monitoring that we have in place is constant? So even if there was a flare up, you would have immediate readings if whatever may be coming from this flare up.
Absolutely, yes. We're in a very good position right now from a response standpoint. That if there is a flare up at any moment, we have data right before and during that event, and we don't have to spend the time to run around and set up monitoring stations. They're set up real time. They're in the community, and they're giving us data as the event is happening. So it's a very good thing from the response side to have this capability set up currently.
Thank you, Eric. And if you could stay on for any possible questions that may come, I'd like to go over to Rick Encarnacion, kind of all loop everybody in together here. Our Environmental Health Bureau has been it's one of the regulators of the facility and has been following up on the incident, and he's been giving us updates weekly. So we're going to ask him for more updates today. Hi, Rick.
Hi, thank you, Maya. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. Rick Encarnacion, Director, Environmental Health, County of Monterey. As you've heard, we're continuing to cooperate and work with our local, state, and federal partners to ensure accountability as well as proper cleanup. This is ongoing, and as incidents like this occur, it's very reassuring to hear that monitoring has been consistent, and as well as whatever future efforts that we need to do to ensure that we understand the impacts of the incident in its totality, and ensure accountability from the responsible party. With that, what I'll do is I'll drop into the chat if there's any concerns or complaints. We have an online form that people could submit, and also our phone number where people can leave a message so that we could do proper follow-up documentation. So that as we continue our enforcement actions, as well as working with the responsible party to ensure, again, follow up for proper cleanup. With that, in terms of an update, we've also been updating the webpage that lives on the Department of Emergency Management webpage. And last time we updated that with information from the Department of Toxic Substance Control. And the latest is an update from the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, which basically says the same thing in terms of what is out there and where we need to focus. But even with that, in terms of the direction of where we need to focus, environmental health will ensure that proper follow-up is done in all directions. Not just because of the past incident, but also because of incidents like this, where we need to do proper follow-up and constant communication with our local, state, and federal partners to ensure proper cleanup and accountability from the responsible party. With that, I'm going to drop the information on the chat, and I'll stand by for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Among the questions that came in last night, and I'm sure a lot of people had questions, and I received a lot of these, is they were obviously people were concerned what might be in the air. Was your department participating in seeing the real-time data and understanding what may be out there and helping emergency responders determine what, if anything, they need to do about the flare-up?
Yes, very much so. Environmental health is part of the first response team, as well as the follow-up team, where in terms of, again, ensuring proper cleanup and accountability from the responsible party. With respects to emergency response, we do have a team of environmental health specialists that participate to ensure that information flows through. We are the local regulatory authority in this case. So we have to make sure that we cross our T's, dot our I's, because there will have to be follow-up enforcement in this case. So yes, we're part of the team in first response. Safety is our priority. Safety of the first responders, the people that actually have to face the flames, as well as safety and ongoing health of the community. We're the local environmental health specialists. We're also known as your health inspectors. So yes, we're part of that team, and we're right now primarily involved with making sure that there's updates to the information that's posted online. People have connectivity to and means to voice their concerns, and ensuring that we have transparency. Even though we have transparency, I must also state we have to respect the enforcement process, which does entail information that will be used in the future for enforcement.
Thank you, Rick. And if you would stand by for any questions, we're going to take one more speaker in related to the fire incident. We have Kristy Michie. She is Assistant Bureau Chief for our Public Health Bureau for the County Health Department. And public health has played a very important and active role in the aftermath of the Battery fire last month. And now they're doing some outreach in the community. And Kristy, I'm hoping you will tell us about this community health survey.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kristy Michie. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Health for the County of Monterey Health Department. As we've spoken about previously, the Health Department is launching a community survey to better understand people's health concerns and to inform future Health Department responses. If you'll give me a moment here, I'll try to share my screen.
We see your screen, Kristy.
Thank you. So I just wanted to reiterate that we are launching this survey to better understand people's health concerns and to inform future Health Department response efforts. It's a quick survey that we're encouraging folks to respond to and complete. It's available in English and Spanish at either the web links shown here or the QR code. If you speak another language besides English or Spanish, or have difficulty completing an online survey for whatever reason, there's a telephone number that you can call. It's shown here on the screen. It's 831-755-4549. And that people are available to respond and in another language from Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 at that line. Again, want to reiterate, this is available to everyone who wants to participate. It is not only to collect information about what symptoms you may have had during the fire, but also to ask questions about whether or not you received health information via health alert during the survey, and where you received your information from during the early days of the event. We are keeping the survey open through March 14th to give people plenty of time to respond. And more than one individual from a household can complete the survey. And if parents or guardians would like to complete the survey on behalf of their dependent children, they are welcome to do that also. And this information will be posted today on the County of Monterey's incident website so that individuals can have easy access to these links.
Thank you, Kristy. Sorry, little audio snafu here. I put the incident website in the chat for people who may not have gone to it already. And I wonder if some of the survey was generated by the calls that public health had gotten, because once the incident occurred, people had a lot of questions. And I know that there was a lot of, phone calls, people asking a lot of questions. This survey seems to be just another way to help people tell you what they experienced.
That's correct. Rick from our environmental health branch just mentioned the complaint forms that people can make through his department. This is another way that people can also share the information and their any symptoms they might have experienced or the feedback about the messaging that they received.
Thank you so much, Kristy. And if you would just hold on in case we have any questions. So this is our group of speakers related to the flare-up and the fire. If there's anyone with questions for these 3 or 4 people, you can go ahead and put your question in chat. You could also raise your hand if you wish and ask your question. So if there's anyone who'd like to start. I am seeing no questions, no hands raised, but there is a question in the chat. Let's see. This could be a question for Eric Sandusky or Chief Mendoza. What is being done to reduce the chances of another flare-up?
So this is Eric Sandusky with US EPA. We are currently working with Vistra on some plans to, it's called delinking the batteries. And basically what that does is it disconnects the batteries. And that reduces the likelihood of propagation and the likelihood of a large fire. So that's currently underway. We have plans to start that on Saturday, February 22nd. And we will be sending a press release, out prior to that to inform the public that we will be doing operations inside the building and to keep everybody informed of what is going on site. But that is currently planned for this Saturday to begin. And that's, kind of what we're doing right now to safely reduce the possibility of a large fire to the part of the structure that we are able to enter due to the structure.
I just want to make sure, Jen, we've had a little audio problem for Eric out in the field where he is. Thank you for that. I've got a question here, but I'm going to jump to another question. KIO, you submitted a question. If you could add a little more clarity to what you just the comments that you've heard about and defining help. I'll get to your question next, if you could clarify a little more. But my other question, this may be for Joel, Supervisor, you're now Supervisor, Chief Mendoza, you got a raise. Is there a third-party fire department in command, or did North County Fire District take back the incident last night? I wonder if you might talk about your interaction, because Vistra has told us there's a private fire firm within the plant. If you could explain.
Yes, so that is a fact. There is a private fire firm that is on site. They have been on site, I'm going to say, since about the 5th or 6th day after the incident. So they're above and beyond any response that we provide. They're an added layer. They are brought in to essentially be that first responder that is already here on site that can identify an issue and start the work that we eventually end up assuming. When we arrive on scene, we assume command, and then they become a resource for us to assist us while mitigating the incident.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to jump to one more question and and if KIO1 doesn't evolve their question, I'll go ahead and ask it. Should residents continue to keep their windows and doors closed if they live close to the plant?
I could answer that question. Rick Encarnacion, Director of Environmental Health. So the alert has been, as what Kelsey mentioned, has been updated. If residents close by are concerned or they smell smoke, they can, if they'd like to keep their windows closed. If you must work outside and you smell smoke or you see smoke, and you you may want to wear a N95 respirator. But for now, it looks like the situation is under control. I think people should also listen to updated alerts, listen to the official reports. Also, just keep aware if alerts go out. And also know that monitoring is constant. We've never left. This incident is not over. As the local health inspector, we're not done. I think one of the questions here, people have been vocally upset. And what is the county doing? We're doing multiple things, including something like this. We're being transparent. We want people to know what we know, and what we don't know, what are we doing to try to find out? And also, we want people to know, again, listen to official reports. Environmental health, the Environmental Health Bureau, at least, we're not done. We're continuing to provide service. We have plans to continue to do sampling and monitoring. And again, as part of cleanup, ensure that proper cleanup is done and there's accountability from the responsible party. So at least speaking from environmental health, along with the first responders and our state, local, and federal partners, the work isn't done. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
Thank you. And so I'll go ahead and ask that question. And I see Brad Watson was monitoring the briefing, but he's on. So this question may be best answered by him. That people have been vocally upset about the situation. Is Vistra or the county doing anything to help those people? So we've already heard from our environmental health, and I was hoping Brad might be able to talk about some of the things that Vistra may be doing.
Thank you, Mayor, for the question. As I interpret it, you're referring to the financial assistance programs that we have underway?
I think that unless there's more you'd like to share.
Well, no, just to reiterate that we are concerned about the impact and the disruption this has caused to our neighbors and to the businesses in the area. So we were very prompt in listening and taking action. Two programs that are still ongoing. One that helps residents who are in the evacuation zone from the January 16th event, who had to leave their homes and incurred some expenses, that through our partners with the foundation, the Community Foundation of Monterey County, and also its partners, United Way, and also the Family Resource Center, the school district, Monterey County, USD, that they can apply for some financial assistance. They can go to mosslandingresponse.com and begin to get the information there and start the process. And we do have one more distribution event on February 22nd for those who would be seeking assistance who had lived in the evacuation zones. And that's going to be at the Moss Landing Harbor District. Separately, we know that there are some businesses that incurred losses because they were in the evacuation zone or because of the traffic and highway transportation disruptions due to roads being closed and people couldn't get to their businesses. So separately, we have a business program. You can also find out information about it through mosslandingresponse.com, in which businesses can come in on a case-by-case basis and work with a third-party vendor we have hired, Stout, that does this kind of work, and bring in whatever documentation they have to try to be made whole on the losses that they incurred, plus lost wages for employees as well. So we have those two things underway. Both have been going along very well. We've heard good positive responses as we have tried to do our part to help people out and stand up in the community.
Thank you very much, Brad, for sharing that information. I have someone with their hand raised, Joseph Gia. I hope I haven't mispronounced your name too badly. If you could identify yourself, who you represent, and ask your question.
Yes, thank you. My name is Joseph Gia. It's not too bad of a mispronunciation. No worries. I'm a reporter and editor with KQED News in the Bay Area. Thanks for taking the time. I just wanted to clarify, and this may retread on some of the ground that Kristy mentioned, but as far as this survey is concerned, I understand, I think, if the county wants to learn how did people receive information and from where about this incident, I think that makes obvious sense why the county would want to kind of understand that for next time. What is the purpose of the county collecting this kind of like anecdotal information from people about whether or not they experience any symptoms and such. The county plan to take any action with that information, use it to the public's benefit in any way? What's the purpose of collecting info about people's, symptoms and such from this, from what they believe to be an issue related to this fire?
Hi, Kristy, Michie, Assistant Director of Public Health. As Rick mentioned, we've been gathering information from a variety of sources related to people's health concerns since the start of this event. The purpose really is to have a more systematic way to gather that information and to do it in a way that allows people to provide a little bit more information than what we have been receiving. It is primarily at this time and for enhanced situational awareness and surveillance. And that's the purpose of the survey at this time.
Joseph, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Great. A follow-up question for Rick. Many people are frustrated by the lack of clarity on possible health effects. How can it simultaneously be true that people should wear N95s outside, but that things are probably fine and they no longer need to be vigilant about keeping doors and windows closed?
Yeah, good question. And I can see like where there may have been some confusion. So just again to restate, there's been constant monitoring. The EPA has conducted air quality monitoring in the evacuations in the zones, and no readings have indicated any significant public health impact. MBARD, our Monterey Bay Air Resource District, has reviewed the smoke sensor data. Air quality has remained in the good range for the past 24 hours. So I think the message should be, should residents in the affected area remain concerned? If they remain concerned and wish to take further steps to protect their health, people who live closest to the fire or smell smoke, could limit their outdoor activities, remain indoors, keep windows and doors closed, and adjust central air systems to recirculate indoor air or close outdoor air intakes to avoid drawing any smoky outdoor air, if there is any. If required to be outdoors where smoke is present, individuals may consider wearing a well-fitted N95 respirator. And of course, if you feel like you're having symptoms or if anything is of your concern, people should visit their healthcare provider if they can. Yeah, I can see where people may be confused and where I say, everything is fine. But I think the message is, monitoring is constant. We're not done with the facility. We're always there right now at the moment. Listen to official reports. And I think the primary advisory and alert went to the people in the affected areas. But if you do have concerns, you can take precautions if you wish. As the chief and the EPA official mentioned, the monitoring is constant. At the moment, everything is in terms of a smoke or fire incident is under control.
Thank you very much, Rick, for expanding on this long question. Are there any other questions related to the fire incident before we move on to our next topics? I am not seeing any hand raised. Double checking, and nothing in chat. Thank you to all the people who came on about the fire incident and the flare up. We have some other topics we're going to move to, and we really appreciate your participation. So there have been some changes in Monterey County for accessory dwelling units, otherwise known as ADUs. That's how we know them. And this has been happening over the last couple of months, and there are more changes to come. We're very pleased to have our colleague Edgar Sanchez from the County of Monterey Housing and Community Development. He's going to tell us more about ADUs and JADUs, or junior ADUs. And we've got a bilingual presentation on this topic. Hi, Edgar.
Hi, Matt. Thank you for having me today. I'm Edgar Sanchez, Assistant Planner for our Housing and Community Development Department. And today I'll be joined by Craig Spencer, our Director for our Housing and Community Development Department, And he'll be doing the English portion of it, and I'll be doing the Spanish portion today.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. Craig Spencer, Director of Housing and Community Development for Monterey County. Edgar, are you going to share the presentation?
Yeah, I can share.
Thank you. So the purpose of this presentation is to provide an update on our accessory dwelling unit and junior accessory dwelling unit regulations in the coastal areas of unincorporated Monterey County. Over the past few years, there's been a number of changes to state law that require the county to update our regulations, and we've been working with the Coastal Commission staff on a number of changes they'd like to see incorporated as well. The intent of the ADU and JADU regulations is to increase the supply of affordable housing and to streamline the permitting process to help make it easier for folks to build affordable housing. Edgar.
Muy buenas tardes y gracias por acompañarnos hoy. Estoy aquí para brindarles una actualización sobre las regulaciones del Condado de Monterrey con respecto a las unidades de viviendas accesorios o ADUs y las unidades de vivienda accesorias junior o JADUs que están siendo actualizadas para las áreas costeras del condado. Solo el objetivo de estas actualizaciones es de alinear las regulaciones del condado con la ley de planificación y zonificación estatal en evolución con rige a los ADUs y a los JADUs. En los últimos años, las leyes estatales han cambiado significativamente, lo que requiere que nuestro condado actualice nuestras regulaciones para mantener consistencia y coherencia con las leyes estatales. Y estas actualizaciones tienen como un objetivo, primero es aumentar el número de viviendas asequibles en las áreas no incorporadas del condado, y segundo es agilizar el proceso de permisos y facilitando el proceso para los propietarios que quieren construir una ADU, un JADU.
We have two main types of ADUs. We have the accessory dwelling units, which can be up to 1,200 square feet. They can be attached, detached, or the conversion of existing structures. They are separate residential units that have independent cooking and kitchens and bathrooms and sleeping facilities. And they don't typically share circulation with the main residence. On the other hand, junior accessory dwelling units may have internal circulation with the main residence. They're limited in size to up to 500 square feet. They're typically part of an existing single-family dwelling. And they do have efficiency kitchens, but they could share some systems with the main residence.
So, nomás queda proporcionar algunas distinciones entre los dos tipos de unidades. Primero tenemos la unidad vivienda accesoria o un ADU. Esta unidad puede medir hasta 1,200 pies cuadrados. La unidad puede estar adjunta a la residencial principal, puede ser una unidad separada o puede ser convertida de una estructura que ya está existente en la propiedad. Estas unidades son independientes, que quiere decir que tienen que tener un área para cocinar, saneamiento, para dormir. Y es importante tomar en cuenta que es una unidad totalmente independiente o no tiene que tener una circulación interna con la vivienda principal. Y en la otra mano tenemos las unidades vivienda accesorias junior o JADUs, que estas unidades pueden medir hasta 500 pies cuadrados, pero deben estar totalmente contenidas dentro de las paredes de la vivienda principal. Y como están dentro de la vivienda principal, pueden compartir un baño y los sistemas centrales, pero deben tener una cocina independiente dentro del JADU. Y como también están dentro, pueden tener circulación interna con la vivienda principal.
This just illustrates the different types of ADUs. It's common to have the conversion of existing non-habitable areas like garages or sheds, barns into ADUs. Those would be conversions of existing structures. You could build new detached or attached ADUs and JADUs. And this slide just illustrates those differences.
So, aquí en esta foto tenemos algunos ejemplos comunes de los desarrollos de ADU y JADU. Por primer ejemplo, tenemos una estructura no habitable convertida a un ADU. Esto puede ser como un garaje, una cochera o cualquier estructura que tengas en tu propiedad que se puede convertir a un ADU, siempre cuando cumpla con las regulaciones de construcción del estado de California. En el segundo ejemplo tenemos un nuevo ADU separado, que es algo completamente nuevo en la propiedad. Y eso es para los propietarios que tengan un espacio en su jardín, en su yarda, para poder acomodar este tipo de unidad. Y ya finalmente tenemos los JADUs y los nuevos ADUs adjuntos. Y esto es cuando quieres añadir una porción a tu vivienda principal para poder convertirla a un ADU. O si, por ejemplo, ya tienes esa porción existente en tu propiedad, lo puedes convertir a un JADU.
So we did include standards that meet the current state law for ADUs. We have removed some zoning standards that required height and setbacks for certain types of ADUs, including the conversion of existing structures. We do not count ADUs towards density or apply unit caps to ADUs. So in areas where there are caps on the number of units that can be created, those do not apply to ADUs and JADUs. ADUs and JADUs are allowed in all zones that allow residential use, not just residential zones. And we do have consistency with the state law for processing permits for ADUs and JADUs within 60 days.
Las regulaciones actualizadas para los ADUs y los JADUs en las áreas costeras incluyen cambios en los estándares de desarrollo para que provienen más flexibilidad en los requisitos de la altura, el tamaño, los retrozos de la unidad en tu propiedad. Actualmente ya no hay restricciones basadas en el tamaño del lote, la densidad de la parcela o los límites de unidades que hay en ciertas áreas del condado. Y ahora los ADUs y los JADUs serán permitidos en todas las zonas que permiten el uso residencial. Y ya finalmente tenemos consistencia con el estado de California al mantener un proceso de aprobación más rápido. Las decisiones sobre estos permisos se deben tomar dentro de 60 días después de que el condado haya recibido una aplicación completa.
So we're bringing this report forward because the Board of Supervisors has approved resolution of intent to adopt updated ADU regulations. They did that on February, help me with the date.
4.
February 4th. The next steps on that are that the adopted regulations have been submitted to the California State Department of Housing and Community Development for their review to determine consistency of our regulations with the adopted ADU regulations. We're waiting on their response at this time, but once we've received their response and provided we're consistent, we will submit the regulations to the California Coastal Commission for their certification. And then it has to go through their certification process before it finally comes back to be adopted and take effect.
Nuestro cronograma para finalizar estas regulaciones incluye los siguientes pasos. La ordenanza actualizada ha sido aprobada por la Junta de Supervisores en el 4 de febrero de este año y ha sido enviada al Departamento de Vivienda y Desarrollo Comunitario del Estado. El siguiente paso es de esperar la revisión del Estado y que nos den confirmación de que la ordenanza esté consistente con la ley estatal. Y una vez que haya sido aprobada y que hayamos recibido la confirmación del Departamento del Estado, la ordenanza se enviará a la Comisión Costera de California para su revisión y certificación. Ya una vez que haya sido la ordenanza certificada por la Comisión Costera, tomará efecto en nuestras regulaciones del condado.
We did want to put a plug in that we do have adopted, pre-approved through our building department, ADU designs that are customizable in terms of their appearance and exterior. We have 3 different floor plans with different options within those 3 floor plans. We have a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and a 3-bedroom option. The 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom are both designed at a size that allows for the waiving of development impact fees. So those would be something that wouldn't need to be go through an expense of being designed and engineered, and wouldn't be subject to development impact fees. The 3-bedroom would be subject to development impact fees, but it does still have the benefit of being engineered and designed and approved by the building department.
So, para agilizar aún más el proceso, hoy también quería mencionar que ofrecemos planos de ADU preaprobados totalmente gratis en 3 tamaños y 2 estilos de arquitectura. Estos planos ya han sido revisados y aprobados por nuestro Departamento de Construcción para garantizar el cumplimiento con los requisitos del Código de Construcción de California. Las 3 opciones de ADU son 3 tamaños. El primero es de 1 cuarto, tenemos una opción de 2 cuartos y de 3 cuartos, y cada uno de los ADUs prediseñados tienen 2 estilos de arquitectura, que el primero sería un poco más moderno y el otro más convencional. Y siempre y cuando su propiedad cumpla con ciertos estándares del condado, los propietarios pueden usar estos planos para obtener un permiso de construcción y comenzar la construcción. Y esto ahorraría mucho tiempo y dinero en el proceso, porque no tuvieras que contratar a un arquitecto o a un diseñador para diseñarte esta unidad. Ya nomás puedes llegar al condado, decirnos que quieres este tipo de unidad y puedes aplicar para un permiso de construcción.
So we're encourage people to stay involved in the process. We have a QR code to visit our website for updates on the process, and Edgar's information and email is here on the slide. He can help if you have specific questions.
Los animamos a todos a que sigan participando en este proceso. Por favor, si tiene cualquier pregunta, visite nuestra página web sobre el proyecto para obtener actualizaciones, o si le gustaría que lo agreguemos a nuestra lista de correo electrónico, por favor comuníquese conmigo y yo los agregaré. Muchas gracias por su tiempo y sería todo.
So Edgar, we still see your screen. But while you're getting rid of that, hey, I really appreciate you walking us through what is happening with ADUs, because we've been hearing a lot about changes over the last year or so. And I'm wondering, can you clarify for people who may not be too familiar or may have missed part of the presentation? We're sending this latest version, iteration of it, is going to the Coastal Commission. Does that mean that some of these ADU plans, for instance, that are available can be used in the inland areas of the county if people wanted to go ahead and think about, adding their own ADU?
Yeah, they can be used in any area of the county. We have adopted inland regulations that have been found consistent with state law. There are probably some updates we need to do to that as well, but that's all in place in the inland area. They can be used there. And we do permit ADUs in the coastal zone under our existing regulations, which are in the process of being updated. And they can be used there as well. So people they could start now with their process if they liked
the current requirements, but they could also wait and see what is being considered. Perhaps those requirements may fit better with what they want to put in place for themselves.
Yeah, so the biggest changes we've made in the coastal area or in the process of making is that at the moment, ADUs are not allowed in the North County coastal area. The ordinances we proposed would allow them in the North County coastal area. And it also simplifies our process for ADUs in our permitting systems. So you can still go through the process now, except for North County. But the process will be simplified, and the allowance for North County will be hopefully maintained through our certification and adoption process.
So everyone can check out those plans that are on the website and pick their dream ADU, right?
Right.
Thank you both very much. No other questions came in on chat. I really appreciate you guys walking us through this, and we really look forward to having that review done and getting more access to ADUs for other parts of the county. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And last but absolutely not least, we're very pleased to talk about the Carmel Lagoon. During the winter season, we often see our hardworking public works crews out at the Carmel Lagoon managing the sandbar. Many who are new to the area or who visit often wonder, why are they out there and why are they doing this work? So we're really pleased to have Public Works staff here to talk about the background of this and why this work is so important. So I see our Director of Public Works Facilities and Parks, Randy Ishii, is here, and also Shandy Carroll from County of Public Housing and Community Development to talk about this. Thank you both for being here on the briefing.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you very much, Maya, for inviting us and for providing us with an opportunity to provide a refresher for our public regarding the Carmel River Lagoon sandbar management activities. We do have a brief PowerPoint presentation, so give me just a moment, please, while my screen pauses and we bring up our presentation. To help focus into the area for our refresher, this Google Earth screenshot image shows the Carmel River State Beach. North is going up. And along that coastline of the beach, you see that there is a road called Scenic Road, which abuts the Carmel River Lagoon, the Carmel River State Beach, as well as the state parks owned parking lot that provides access to the beach. And up at the very north of the screen, or very top of the screen, we have the 4th edition, which are the homes that are located closest to the Carmel River Lagoon. Now, in this picture showing this portion of Carmel by the Sea within Monterey County, there is a wetland natural preserve, often referred to as the Carmel River Lagoon, which is located on the right-hand side of the screen. And from there, that is where the flows of the Carmel River come from up at the tail of the valley, down past the mouth of the valley, over here to ultimately discharge into the Pacific Ocean. Generally, during the first large winter rainfall, the lagoon has a tendency to back up or otherwise backwater behind the beach, but it would eventually overflow and break through to open up to the river mouth to the ocean. Now, there's some challenges associated with this that we'll get to in a little bit more detail, but generally speaking, this is an activity that we do annually, if not seasonally, and it's due to the low river flows from the Carmel River and the wave action from the Carmel River beach itself. The wave action from the Pacific Ocean going onto the Carmel River beach brings copious amounts of sand and naturally rebuilds the height and elevations and the landforms along the beach, forming a sandbar or barrier across the Carmel River mouth, which cuts off the flow to the ocean. So again, as we mentioned before, it's generally during that first large winter rainfall that there sometimes is a backup behind that sandbar, and thus nature needs a helping hand from the county, from Public Works, Facilities and Parks, and from Housing and Community Development. And with this, I'd like to hand the floor over to my partner, Shandy Carroll, to talk a little bit about the background.
Yeah, absolutely. And Randy, I could see if I can share screens. It's a little bit tricky sometimes. You're not actually sharing, but while we get that loaded up, sandbar management is the removal of sand from the Carmel River State Beach, and it really, like Mr. Ishii was saying, it allows the river to break through to the ocean. This sort of practice has been ongoing for about 100 years. It was originally done by the families that were farming in the area, and then in the 1970s, it was passed on to a county agency. Due to regulatory system changes in this 100-year period, the county now manages the sandbar under permits from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the California Coastal Commission, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the California Regional Water Quality Control Board, and there's a biological opinion from the NOAA, National Marine Fisheries, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Agency. So it is multiple agencies that share regulatory responsibility, and make sure that the county's actions are responsible under those different permits. If whoever's the host could, oh, I can share. Hold on, let me share screens. And let's see here. Move some things around.
And Shandy, I believe we want to go to the slide that talks about the Carmel Lagoon and the environment.
Yes. Yeah. Do you want to take it from here, Randy?
Certainly. So as we discussed, the Carmel River Lagoon, and the environment itself are a very unique system. It's a unique area, unlike any other lagoon system that we believe in the state of California. The beach has a very high energy environment with the wave action. And as we saw during this past holiday season, that wave action had heights cresting from anywhere from 30 feet to 60 feet tall. The river itself has some interesting flows. The river flow can go from a very low flow rate to a trickle to as rapidly as thousands of cubic feet per second. Analogously speaking, if you can imagine a wave of basketballs coming down that river, that's generally that same amount of flow of water that's cascading down from the Carmel River down to the ocean. So with that causes the natural opening and closing of the lagoon to be somewhat of a challenge. And the predominant wave action can push the river mouth opening to the north towards the Carmel River State Beach parking lot, and can overtop the beach, as well as can overtop the restroom facility there by the by the parking lot, which is not what we would want. We want to keep that river opening to the south. And nature itself can be quite challenging. There's a lot of unique challenges there. Just in brief, in 2023, the wave action as well as the storms were so great, these extremely large waves caused damage to the road called Scenic Road and caused flooding and damage around the neighborhood. And with this, that leads to the county's two departments of HCD and Public Works, Facilities and Parks doing county actions. And recently, here in the winter of 2024 and 2025, the county did its standard activity of applying for permits from the various state resource agencies and federal resource agencies. It's quite a long list, but just generally name a couple of them. There's the California Coastal Commission, there's the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, there's the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and the list goes on. As part of the activities, a sandbag wall is constructed in and around the 4th Edition neighborhood closest to the lagoon itself. And the purpose of the wall is to be built to an elevation of approximately 15 feet NAVD 88. And that's very specific survey terminology. The point with that is that it's at an elevation that allows the lagoon water level to rise to a near natural level to allow, as we understand it, the aquatic species in the lagoon environment to grow to a level where the salmonids can now go from a freshwater environment to the saltwater environment and survive. To supplement the sandbag wall, County Public Works places high flow stormwater pumps there at select locations in the neighborhood. And generally, like in this year, the sandbar management activity occurs in the month of December. As a more evolved form of our permitted activity, very recently the county was allowed permission to allow the crews, our road crews, to use hand tools, aka shovels, to reestablish the channel. And that's here again part of that challenge with the wave action and the river flows. Waves build back the sandbar, which causes the river to close up. So nature needs some help, and that's what the county road crews do by reestablishing the channel with hand tools as allowed under the permits. The mechanical activity is far more rigorous and has a lot more constraints built into the permits with that activity. And as we go on to the next slide, this slide shows the triggers that we have in order to do that mechanical sandbar management, aka use bulldozers and other heavy equipment on the beach to construct the pilot channel to send that water out to the Pacific Ocean. And so generally the 3 triggers are the lagoon water surface elevation needs to rise above 12.77 feet NAVD 88 and was rapidly rising to a point where there's less than 6 hours before it would overtop. Or the Carmel River's flows themselves as measured by the stream gauge at the Robles del Rio Bridge exceeds 200 cubic feet per second, or if there is concurrence from the federal agency known as the National Marine Fisheries Service. And with this slide, Shandy, would you like to take this one regarding the temporary flood hazard options for the public?
Absolutely. So we always want to encourage the local residents in the area to be aware that they're in the 100-year floodplain and that they're also in an area of frequent flooding. It's the 4th Edition neighborhood in Carmel. So some actions that residents can do is to monitor the weather and be prepared for storms. A lot of times we get a little bit of warning ahead of storms. There's access to sandbags and sand, and those sandbags are located around both the city of Carmel by the Sea, but also within the county in a variety of locations. To sign up for emergency alerts at alertmontereycounty.org. And that's really important because the Department of Emergency Management, Monterey County Department of Emergency Management, monitors and flood hazards and will send out evacuation warnings or orders if necessary. The county does all we can to reduce the risk of flooding, but there is always a risk of flooding in this area.
Very good. And that takes us to our conclusion of our brief refresher for the public of why Carmel River Lagoon sandbar management activity occurs on an annual basis. And as a reminder for the public, if anyone has seen us being the Public Works road crews out on the beach to reestablish the pilot channel using hand tools, it is a very orchestrated operation involving multiple agencies and multiple agency overlap in order to provide as safe as possible working environment to reestablish the pilot channel. So out there we have a combination of state parks employees, which we're very grateful for to be there to close the beach, so that way, and assist with the closure, so that way the public is not put in harm's way. We also have CAL FIRE and sometimes Monterey County Sheriff's Office, swiftwater rescue divers on standby within no more than a couple of people's distance from one employee to that swiftwater rescue diver. And there's a sundry of other public agencies out there who assist the county with reestablishing the pilot channel. We mention all of this because, as you see from the picture, the water that's flowing through that channel is flowing at an extremely fast speed. Sometimes even the swiftwater rescue divers cannot even enter the water because they will be putting themselves into harm's way. So as we conduct the activity, we implore our public to please observe the on-site conditions, and when around the pilot channel itself that's flowing out to the ocean, it's moving at an extremely fast speed. So please be careful for yourself. Make sure there's a lifeguard around, and if the recommendation is not to be swimming in the water or in that pilot channel, it is best to heed the warning. And with that, we thank you all very much for the opportunity to be able to speak on the refresher.
Oh, thank you both very much. That was just a fantastic and actually pretty fast run through of something that's been going on for about 100 years. I know we constantly get questions from the public about, why you do it, but they also ask, what is the solution? And I think the solutions have been challenging over the years to find what could be done to both allow the lagoon to be, natural and yet protect the housing. Where is the solution in the big scheme of things?
So Shandy, I can start off with the response on this one. The county's undertaken a lot of efforts in order to find that ultimate long-term solution for this very challenging environment and very challenging condition of the Carmel River Lagoon. This past year, the county undertook at great expense and time and effort a environmental impact report that looked at the recommended options as well as a myriad of alternative options. And the county adopted that environmental document so that it helps put the county onto a pathway forward for seeking what those ultimate options may look like. One of those is to look at some grant programs for some home elevations to help the community become more resilient. And that's an avenue is to effectively raise the homes out of the 100-year floodplain elevation. And some other options include constructing what's called the scenic road protective structure, which is a buttressing of that existing scenic road that's along that coastline that we saw in those pictures, which it is a very costly undertaking whose expenditure is greater than the current revenue sources that the county sees. So we are exploring all avenues of supplemental grant funding, if not other funding programs to make that possible. So a combination of all those different actions lend themselves to being a much longer term solution that is both environmentally compliant and serves the public.
And one of the most interesting questions this past December, when you guys did so much work out there, one of the most interesting public questions that we had was, why are they letting all the water out? We live in California where we are very concerned about water. Many of us have gone through lots of water, rationing and conservation efforts and everything. And yet we see the sandbar opening and the water going through. And I was hoping you might want to address that because you're working with a lot of agencies that also care about water and wildlife, et cetera, that use the water.
All very good points, Maya. And Shandy, I can start off on the response on this one. And water is always on not only the public's mind, but our mind as well. With the creation of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act and the flourishing of the groundwater sustainability agencies, this does lend itself to a longer term solution, potentially of a combination multi-use project that could potentially do multiple things, inclusive of groundwater recharge, for example. That's one that would involve the other relevant agency partners to have that much larger discussion. So things that's one that's in further development, and certainly is a good idea that's been brought up by the member of the public. And Shandy, if there's anything that, not sure if there's anything that you would like to also add to that.
There's just one thing I'll add to that, that's the action that the county does opens the Carmel River mouth an estimated hours to at most a day or two before it would do so naturally. So we've done several technical studies as part of the environmental impact report. And really the river is going to open the sandbar naturally. That's part of its natural system. It's evolved to do that system. And so the water's going to go out to the ocean. It's a river, and the lagoon, opening the lagoon sooner versus later doesn't change the amount of water that stays in the lagoon over the winter. The time that the lagoon closes itself naturally to the ocean at the end of the winter season is that can trap water back, and so that it pools in the lagoon. But it's not enough to change groundwater levels at that point. It's more as a habitat for fish over the summer season, and it's really all part of the variability of the lagoon system, which is really complex.
And important as well, because we love our local wildlife and they love the lagoon. So we're all one big happy family, hopefully. And that was the only question I have. Any last word on the lagoon? Anything you'd like people to know?
If they have any questions, please will reach out to us.
Thank you both. Really, thank you for walking us through this. I know you do this every year, but for so many people, this is new. And, we love the beach and we love the lagoon, and it's nice to know it's in good hands. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on the news briefing this week. Our next briefing is next week, and we'll see you then.